So hey everybody, and welcome to Alan's Bonsai. So today I'm going to be working on some Shohin Gmelina. And I've got 5 different trees, and they're all very close to the same size. They're in virtually the same pot, although a little bit different style pot, but the size of the pot is virtually the same. They're virtually all the same age, but they are styled completely differently. Some have really nice motion, and some are really pretty pitiful. And I will show you that. So this is the first one here. And if we take some of these branches and move them away, you'll see it has pretty nice motion in here. So this tree just needs another haircut, accentuate the trunk line, and this is a really nice little tree. It's going to have really nice motion. So the second one is this guy here, and it also has nice motion. Comes up, comes up, comes up, does a little twist. We can put some wire into there. So this is also going to be a very nice little tree once I've trimmed it up and removed the excess. Then the third one we have is this one here. Now this one here is very straight, slanting, and either this is the front or this is the front. But it really doesn't have much going for it because it's just too straight. I suppose we could turn it into a slanting trunk where it just goes straight up. But it definitely doesn't have the kind of movement that I like in a tree. So this tree has a little confusion. So for now I may just be a little more gentle on this tree and make a decision maybe a little bit later on about what I really want to do with it. And then the fourth tree is just pitiful. Totally straight, no movement, trunk just comes straight up. It has some branching, but they are also just, there's no pizzazz to this tree, there's no real style. It's just it's just too straight. It just doesn't have any motion. It doesn't have any taper. Got some crud there. So this guy is gonna take some probably pretty drastic cutting back to create some motion. And I may just take the whole top off and like leave this guy and just chop everything else off, which will create instant movement and instant taper. And you may think that's a drastic procedure, but sometimes that's just the way it needs to be done. And then the last one is kind of a tale of woe. So this guy here, if you look at this scar, it's pretty bad. And we had a hailstorm on the 28th of April. And actually, the tree used to be right here where the scar is. I had a cute little tree that just came out into this section here, and I had the branching, and it was only going to be about this high, and these were sacrifice branches, which a sacrifice branch is something that you keep on a tree that's eventually going to be completely removed to thicken up the trunk. And anyway, the hail came down and just totally snapped my tree off, the whole tree. I mean, you can see there that scar just, it took the whole thing off. So now it's like, what do you do with this thing? And it has some hope, let's put it that way. At least it's got a little more motion than the last one. So those are the 5 trees. So I'm going to start with number 1 again. And so we have, this is the potential front, or this is the front. And this back branch here is obviously in the back. So this is the front of this tree here. So then it's just a matter of cutting back the excess growth, taking elongated growth, because Gmelina grows very elongated, and removing it. And probably this guy here can be shortened tremendously. Okay, so now, and we want to clean up the trunk more, get that trunk line accentuated. There we go. There's some more hail damage, if you can see right there. Okay, so this guy is looking pretty good already. And then I'm going to cut this way back, I'm going to cut the back branch way back, and then I'm going to take the apex to right here. So I'm going to chop to there. Cut that guy back, cut this guy back. Get rid of that thing. Sometimes just one leaf can change the whole look of a tree. So I don't like this leaf here either. So that's a pretty nice little tree now. Great motion, great taper. Some of these top branches are a little heavy, but now we're going to accentuate this as the apex, and that, when it develops out, fills in, that's going to be a real nice little tree. Okay, so there's number one. So number two is very similar. Let me get rid of the cuttings from number one. So number two is very similar. We have either this is the front or this is the front, and once again it's obvious that this makes a much better front. So immediately this branch comes off here, and right away that just accentuates the trunk line just so much more nicely. And I'm actually going to take this branch off too, and this one will be the first main branch, and it just needs some trimming. Stay in the pot. These guys love to grow out of the pot. They root very aggressively. And obviously this is going to come off here. Take this little guy off here. You always want to keep your trunk line clear from about a third of the way down. And then what are we going to do with the top here? We could bring it up like that, and then use this guy. So, or we could take the whole thing off and use this as the new leader. So either like this and like this. So we're going to cut this guy off either way. So let's take that off, shorten this guy up so we can see what we're doing. So I can come up like this into here, or I could shorten it to this leader. So for now I can make that decision a little later. But once again, this is going to be a very nice little tree. Got great motion and decent taper. And once it fills in, and some of these limbs can be wired down a little, because wiring limbs down gives you even more of an impression of age. And I will make a decision on the top a little bit later. So if you subscribe to my channel and click the notifications, then you'll be able to be notified when I'm about to work on these trees again. So I'll probably try to keep them all as a group, work on them all together. So there's number two. So number three is, now just because it's in a bonsai pot, which I probably put this in a bonsai pot too soon, and I have to admit I'm guilty of premature bonsai potting. It doesn't necessarily mean that either this is the front or this is the front. Could be that something like that is the front. So let's cut this guy, because we're probably going to cut him off anyway. So you see right away there seems to be some possibility for some motion in there if this is the front. And I kind of like that as the front. Once again we see this branch here has a bunch of excess growth, so that's going to come off. And then, so what I'm thinking of is coming up into here, taking the top off and using this guy. There's some more hail damage right there, if you can see that little scar. The hail really put a lot of damage on a lot of trees, but that'll heal over. It's not that big of a deal. So let's take this off. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to completely repot it, because obviously we're looking at the pot right now from the side. But I think that's what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to chop this guy here and then cut it to there. And now I'm probably going to use these as my first main branches. So I'm going to chop these away here. We've got this excess growth here. This guy needs to be shortened tremendously. And this one needs to come off entirely. And this guy also can be shortened. So that has some potential now to be a nice tree. And it'll need to be completely repotted. And I'll probably do a little bit of wiring, but this is just a preliminary pruning. So the wiring will bring this guy back against the grain. So then you'll have, nice motion. And we'll need to build a top up here. And these branches here are pretty sparse. So they will need to, I'll need to build pads there. This little tiny branch back here has really nothing to do with the design, but I may leave it just elongate to use it as a sacrifice branch to thicken up the trunk. A branch that you let to elongate will thicken the trunk from where it hits the trunk down. So that's not a bad transformation based on how plain it was when I started. Okay. So now, this one here. Let me get rid of some of the crud from the other guys. Now, what do we do with this one? Well, I guess the first thing we can do is, like the rest of them, just chop away all the excess growth. Gmelinas tend to grow very cane-like, so they shoot a lot of excess growth. So this tree just has no pizzazz. It has no motion. It's a kind of another one where just because right now either this is the front or this is the front, doesn't really have to be. And oh man, I'm thinking of just like whacking it, I don't really see anything in here that I really like. So this is kind of one where I'm just not sure. Although probably something, get rid of that. Something like this is probably there. There we go. Instant movement. And you may say, why did he do that? Well, I didn't like what I had. So now this tree is basically going to start over, and it probably needs to be potted next time I repot it a little bit more like that. But we've got instant movement, and yes, it'll take much longer to be a nice tree compared to the other ones. But I'm running out of time on my battery. So I think I'm going to have to end this one here and do number 5, attach it onto the back of this video. So, see you in a bit. So now to this guy. Oh, I don't really know what to do with this guy. Although, as is usually the case, just chopping off all the excess is usually the first step. And I'm thinking of bringing it up into here and into here. So chop this guy off, chop this guy off, and chop this guy off. And I suppose I should chop this guy all the way. And so let's salvage something, I guess. This guy needs to be shortened tremendously. It's going to be the first main branch. So that's something. It's better than having absolutely nothing from where the tree used to be. So there you go. Sometimes you have to take drastic procedures. I certainly didn't want to do this to this tree, but the hailstorm sort of forced me into it. So there you go. 5 different trees, and they all ended up looking quite differently. So let's review, shall we? Okay, so which was number 1? Oh, well, forgive me if I don't get number 1 and 2 mixed up anyway. So this was one of them, and this is going to be a real nice little tree. Got great motion. The front needs to come forward a little bit, but it's going to be a nice tree. And then number 2 is another really nice tree that has great movement and decent taper. And then this one here, I modified the front, so as far as the pot's concerned, this would be the front, or this would be the front, but now I've modified the front to be here. So the next time I repot, I'll totally spin it around. And it may not even be in the same pot. A lot of times you can change pots. But I think that's going to be a decent tree. And then this one got a major trunk chop, just because the trunk itself was just so boring, just so straight and had no motion or any kind of pizzazz. So sometimes this kind of drastic procedure will help produce a much nicer tree over the long run. And then last but not least, this guy here that I just did, and this was more of a traumatic thing. I wanted the tree to be right here. I had a beautiful little mame tree here, but the scar, the hailstorm, just totally knocked it off. So, this tree it's got some potential. Probably also needs to be, the front needs to be changed a little bit, more like to there. But I think over time I probably not lament the fact that I lost that other tree. This guy could prove to be a pretty nice little tree over time. So that's it for this video. And once again, please like and subscribe. And I will be doing updates on all my trees as they develop, so you can watch that development. So if some of these things shock you and you say, man, he sure did cut that back a lot, if you subscribe, you'll be able to see the development of those trees. And just, sometimes those major cutbacks can actually be, quote unquote, the best thing that could have happened to the tree. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.